When billionaire tech mogul Evelyn Morrow finds a maid's 10-year-old daughter hiding in her kitchen, eating cold leftovers meant for the trash, the world expects anger. But what follows isn't fury. It's a moment that will rewrite the life of a woman who thought she'd forgotten what it means to feel. Before we go back to the story, please like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to tell us where you are listening from. In a mansion powered by machines and guarded by silence, a child's hunger speaks louder than the hum of wealth. It's 2022, San Francisco, where fortunes are built on screens, and kindness feels like an outdated code. But tonight, beneath the glow of glass walls and whispering circuits, a little girl named Lila Navarro dares to steal what the world has already thrown away. Because hunger doesn't follow rules. And when the woman who built an empire on logic and control discovers a starving child in her own kitchen, one simple act of compassion will expose the emptiness behind all her success and change 2 lives forever. By the time Evelyn Morrow turned 40, she had already done the impossible. She had transformed a single line of code into a billion-dollar empire, Morrow Tech, a company that powered half of America's smart homes and security systems. People called her the woman who automated empathy. But inside her own mansion, empathy had no place. Everything was designed for efficiency, from the voice-controlled lights that adjusted to her mood to the drones that dusted the marble floors. There were no human fingerprints anywhere. Just perfection. Perfection and silence. Every night at exactly 10:30, Evelyn's schedule followed the same pattern. Endless meetings. A glass of water. 3 sleeping pills. But that night, sleep refused her. The city glittered below her glass balcony, a sea of neon veins pumping money and ambition. She told herself she couldn't rest because of the next product launch. But the truth was simpler and lonelier. Her father's photo still sat on the edge of her desk, framed in black. He had died in an industrial fire when she was 12, the kind of workplace tragedy she'd built her company vowing to prevent. Yet somewhere between saving the world and running it, Evelyn had lost herself. She left her office, walked barefoot through the corridor, and headed for the kitchen. Maybe a warm drink would calm her mind. The automatic lights came on, soft white, sterile. The air smelled faintly of lemon and steel. She moved quietly, until she heard it, a faint rustle. The sound of small, hurried breaths. And then, a clatter. Evelyn froze. At the far end of the kitchen, a small figure crouched by the disposal unit, a child, maybe 9 or 10, her tiny hands holding a half-eaten plate of pasta. When the girl saw her, she gasped. The plate slipped. Food scattered across the floor. Evelyn's voice came out sharp, instinctively. "What are you doing here?" The girl stammered. I'm sorry, Please don't tell my mama. I wasn't stealing. I was just hungry." Her eyes were wide, terrified, shining with tears under the cold lead glow. Evelyn blinked. "Who's your mother?" The answer came out in a whisper. "Maria Navarro. She cleans the bedrooms." Evelyn's chest tightened. She knew Maria, quiet, punctual, invisible. A perfect employee in a house that demanded silence. She should have called security. She should have reminded the girl that this part of the house was off limits. But something about the child's voice stopped her. Maybe it was the way she clutched that broken plate like it was a lifeline. Maybe it was the word hungry. Evelyn took a step forward. The house AI spoke, its tone polite and neutral. "Would you like me to remove the intruder, Ms. Morrow?" Evelyn hesitated. Then, softly, "Cancel command." The system went quiet. The mansion obeyed her silence. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Evelyn noticed the girl's shoes, torn, too small, taped at the sides. Her hands were trembling. Without a word, Evelyn walked to the counter, opened the warming drawer, and pulled out a plate. Steam rose from it. She placed it on the table. "Sit," she said. The girl blinked. "Sit. Eat. Before it gets cold." The child hesitated, then obeyed. She climbed onto the stool, barely tall enough to reach the table. For the next few minutes, The only sound in that massive kitchen was the faint clinking of a spoon and the soft, rhythmic hum of machines. When the girl was done, Evelyn asked, "What's your name?" "Lila," she said softly. "Lila Navarro." Evelyn nodded, almost to herself. "How old are you, Lila?" 10. "Does your mother know you're here?" Lila shook her head, her face full of guilt. "No, She told me to stay in the staff lounge. But Mama hasn't eaten since yesterday. She said she wasn't hungry. But I know she was. I just wanted to bring her some food." The billionaire's throat went dry. She looked down at her own untouched dinner, still laid out on the counter, 4 dishes she'd barely glanced at. Her chef prepared enough food for 10 people every night. Most of it was thrown away. And yet, here was a child, small, fragile, barefoot, begging for scraps from her trash. For the first time in years, Evelyn Morrow didn't know what to say. For a long moment, silence filled the kitchen. Only the hum of the refrigerator and the soft buzz of the lights broke the stillness. Evelyn Morrow stood there, arms crossed, staring at the small girl whose world revolved around hunger and fear. In that silence, she saw something she hadn't seen in years. Innocence fighting shame. "You know stealing is wrong, don't you?" Evelyn finally said, her voice even. Lila nodded quickly, panic flashing across her eyes. "Yes, I swear I wasn't stealing. I wasn't. I just thought it was going to be thrown away. Mama says rich people don't eat leftovers." Evelyn froze at the words. Rich people don't eat leftovers. It wasn't an accusation, just a truth, spoken softly by a child who didn't know the weight of her honesty. Lila lowered her head, tears forming. "Please, don't fire my mama. She didn't know. She told me never to come here. I just wanted to take a little food for her." Evelyn took a slow breath, the chill in her voice fading. She turned toward the large countertop where untouched plates from her dinner meeting still sat. Steak, risotto, pastries, enough to feed a small family. "Your mother works very hard," Evelyn said quietly. "Does she ever eat here?" Lila shook her head. "No, She said the food here is not for people like us." That sentence struck Evelyn harder than she expected. Not for people like us. She remembered her father, coming home from his factory job covered in soot, laughing as he told her, "One day you'll eat in places that won't let men like me through the door." She had promised herself that day she'd build something bigger, something fair. And yet here she was, standing over a starving child in her own kitchen. She sighed, walking slowly to the oven. With a few quiet clicks, she reheated the leftover pasta, plated it properly, and added a piece of bread and a glass of milk. "Eat," she said again. Lila hesitated, eyes darting toward the door. "If Mama sees me." "Then tell her I invited you." The girl's eyes widened. "You'd let me?" Evelyn gave the smallest nod. "You're already here. Might as well eat something fresh." Lila climbed onto the stool again, clutching the edge of the counter like it was sacred. She began eating, slow at first, careful, polite, until hunger took over and she could no longer hide it. Evelyn stood across from her, watching quietly. Every bite the girl took felt like an accusation. Every chew reminded her how easy it had been to forget what hunger looked like. After a while, Evelyn spoke softly. "How long has your mother worked here?" "Since last year," Lila replied between bites. "She said Miss Evelyn pays fair, and the house is so big she never runs out of things to clean." "And your father?" Evelyn asked gently. Lila's spoon stopped midair. She looked down. "He used to work at the port. Then, he fell." Evelyn's brow furrowed. "Fell?" "Mama said a machine broke. The company said it was his fault. He got hurt bad and couldn't walk for months. Then they stopped paying." The girl's words hit like a wave. Evelyn knew that port. It used equipment supplied by Morrow Freight, a logistics subsidiary she had acquired 2 years ago. A name flashed in her mind, Navarro. She'd seen it once, buried in a compensation claim that had never reached her desk. "What's your father's name, Lila?" "Antonio Navarro." Evelyn's breath caught. That was her company's case. The denied one. The one her legal team had quietly settled for nothing. Guilt coiled in her chest like a tightening wire. Lila kept talking, unaware of the storm she'd just unleashed. "Mama said it's okay. She said powerful people don't care about small families like ours. She said we just have to work harder." Evelyn couldn't respond. Her throat closed. Powerful people don't care. The line echoed in her mind, shattering something deep within her. Lila finished her meal and wiped her mouth carefully with a napkin. "Thank you, Evelyn blinked, forcing her composure. "You're welcome." Lila stood to leave, clutching the star-shaped bracelet on her wrist, a handmade charm from her father. As she turned, Evelyn saw it glint in the light. Cheap metal, scratched but full of love. "That bracelet?" Evelyn asked softly. "Your father made that for you?" Lila smiled faintly. "Yes. He said it's my lucky star. Whenever I'm scared, I touch it, and I feel like he's close." Evelyn swallowed hard. She had worn her own father's watch for years, until she'd replaced it with a sleek digital tracker. Somehow, the old watch had felt warmer. She looked down at the little girl and said quietly, "You should go back to your room now, Lila. And don't worry, your mother isn't in trouble." Lila's eyes brightened with relief. "Thank you, Miss Evelyn. You're not as scary as Mama said." Evelyn couldn't help but chuckle. "Is that so?" Lila nodded. "She said rich people forget what hungry looks like. But maybe you didn't." The words hit harder than Lila could ever know. As the child disappeared down the hallway, Evelyn stood alone in the vast kitchen, staring at the crumbs on the counter. The silence felt heavier now, not peaceful, but accusing. Her reflection glimmered on the glass window, framed by the city lights below. For the first time in years, Evelyn Morrow didn't see a billionaire or a CEO. She saw a woman who had built everything, and somehow lost the one thing that mattered most: a heart. The next morning, the mansion was its usual orchestra of automation. Curtains drew themselves open. Coffee brewed on schedule. The AI assistant listed Evelyn's meetings in a calm, unbothered tone. Everything ran like clockwork, except Evelyn. She sat at the breakfast table, untouched croissant before her, eyes fixed on nothing. Her mind replayed the night before, the trembling hands, the soft voice, the small girl eating as if time itself might take the food away. No report, no investor call, no achievement had ever made her feel the way that scene did. It wasn't guilt alone. It was memory. For the first time in years, Evelyn thought of her father, Joseph Morrow, a machine technician who had believed in fixing things, not discarding them. She remembered his voice. "No one deserves to be invisible, Eve. Not the ones who clean your shoes, not the ones who sweep your floor. People matter." Somehow, somewhere along the line, she had built a world that forgot those words. A gentle knock pulled her back to the present. The kitchen door opened, and Maria Navarro stepped in, holding a cleaning cloth and avoiding eye contact. Her face was pale, her movements tense, like someone walking into a storm she already knew was coming. "Ms. Morrow," Maria began shakily. I'm sorry about last night. Please don't be angry. Lila didn't mean to." Evelyn raised a hand gently. "She's not in trouble, Maria." Maria blinked, unsure if she heard right. She isn't." "No. She was hungry. And that's not a crime." Maria's voice cracked. "Please, don't fire me. I'll pay for what she took." "Enough." Evelyn's tone softened. "Sit." Maria froze. "Sit where?" "Right here." Evelyn motioned to the table. Maria hesitated. No one had ever asked her to sit in this room before. Not as a guest. Not even as a person. Evelyn rose, went to the counter, and poured a cup of coffee for her. The rich aroma filled the air. "You must be exhausted," Evelyn said. You've been working since dawn." Maria tried to protest, but her trembling hands betrayed her. She accepted the cup and sat down slowly, eyes red with worry. "Lila told me about your husband," Evelyn said softly. "What happened?" Maria's breath caught. For a second, her walls broke. She clasped her hands tightly. He worked at the Bayline port, one of the loading sites. A machine failed and crushed his leg. The company said he was careless. They stopped the compensation. We've been managing. Evelyn's jaw tightened. Bayline port. That's under Morrow Freight, isn't it? Maria looked confused. I don't know, I just clean rooms. I don't know who owns what. Evelyn nodded slowly, mind already connecting the pieces. That claim, the Navarro case, the one her legal team had marked resolved without payout. Resolved, meaning buried. She looked across the table. Maria's eyes were tired, the kind of tired that comes from carrying the world alone. Why didn't you tell me? Evelyn asked. Maria laughed faintly, though there was no joy in it. People like me don't tell people like you. We just survive. That's what poor people do. The words landed like shards of glass. Evelyn took a deep breath. She could have changed the subject. She could have dismissed Maria and gone back to her empire. But instead, she said the only thing that mattered. You're not invisible anymore, Maria. Maria blinked, unsure what that meant. Evelyn picked up her phone. What's your husband's hospital? St. Catherine's, But. No buts. Evelyn's voice was calm, steady, commanding, the voice that could move boardrooms and shift markets. He's going to get the treatment he deserves. She dialed her head of legal. Gabriel. It's Evelyn. I want the Navarro claim reopened immediately. If I find it was denied without cause, prepare restitution, full medical coverage and back pay. Yes, tonight. Maria sat frozen, tears filling her eyes. I can't let you do that. It's too much. No, Evelyn said softly, setting her phone down. It's not enough. I can't erase what my company allowed. But I can start fixing it. Maria covered her face with her hands, sobbing quietly. It was the first real sound in the mansion that morning. Not machines, not automation, but a human sound. After a while, Evelyn stood and poured another cup of coffee for herself. The air felt lighter, somehow warmer. Maria, she said, take tomorrow off. Go be with your husband. I'll have a driver take you to the hospital. And tell Lila she's always welcome in the kitchen, for food, not leftovers. Maria looked up, stunned. You're serious? Evelyn smiled, the kind of smile she hadn't used in years. Dead serious. Maria rose slowly, holding the cup with shaking hands. I don't know what to say. Say thank you by eating breakfast next time, Evelyn said. Maria nodded, crying again. And as she left, Evelyn turned back toward the kitchen window. Outside, the morning sun broke through the fog, painting the skyline gold. For the first time in a long time, Evelyn Morrow didn't see towers of steel or numbers on a screen. She saw people, fragile, flawed, real people, and realized she'd been living among ghosts. That morning, something shifted in her. It wasn't business. It wasn't duty. It was human. And deep down, she knew. This wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning of her redemption. The rain came down softly that evening, streaking the glass walls of the Morrow estate like tears the house didn't know how to shed. Maria Navarro stood outside the study, clutching her cleaning cloth, unsure if she should knock. Inside, Evelyn Morrow sat surrounded by screens, financial reports, analytics, graphs, everything that used to define her. But tonight, none of it mattered. When she finally looked up, her voice was gentle. Come in, Maria. Maria stepped forward, eyes red from crying. I came to thank you. My husband's surgery is scheduled. They said someone from your office called the hospital. Evelyn smiled faintly. That was me. Maria's lips trembled. I don't know how to repay you. You already have, Evelyn said softly. You reminded me what I'd forgotten. Maria's voice cracked. I didn't want you to think we were ungrateful. I taught my daughter never to ask for more than life gives us. But she's just a child. She gets hungry. Evelyn nodded. Children shouldn't have to learn hunger. That's an adult's burden. There was a long silence. The air hummed with sincerity. Then Maria said something that made Evelyn's heart twist. Do you ever get lonely? Evelyn blinked. What? You live here, all alone in this big house. I see you sometimes through the glass, working so late the sky forgets to turn dark. I used to think people like you don't need anyone. But last night when I saw you with Lila, you looked like someone who did. For a moment, the billionaire didn't know how to respond. Maybe I do, she whispered. Maria smiled sadly. Then maybe that's why Lila came to you, not just because she was hungry, but because you were too. Later that night, Evelyn couldn't sleep. She sat in her office, scrolling through Moroteca's employee archives and legal records. Then she found it, Case 2021 FR 117, labeled Closed, Insufficient Evidence. The Navarro claim. She opened the file. Photos of the damaged machine. Medical records. A denial letter signed by her head of legal, Gabriel Tran. The same man who had promised her their company was built on ethics. Her pulse quickened. She called him immediately. Gabriel, she said coldly, tell me why the Navarro case was denied. There was hesitation on the other end. It was a small claim, Evelyn. The worker took the blame. It wasn't worth legal escalation. Not worth it. Evelyn's voice dropped an octave. A man lost his leg. His family starved. And you call it not worth it? Evelyn, it's how the system works. Then the system is broken. And I built it. Which means I'll fix it, even if it breaks me first. She ended the call. For the first time, she realized the cost of her empire wasn't money. It was morality. At that moment, she made a vow. No more invisible people. No more buried cases. She drafted a letter herself, reinstating Antonio Navarro's compensation, full medical coverage, and a public apology. And then, she began auditing every claim Morotec had ever denied. By dawn, her legal team's inboxes were full. Evelyn Moro, the woman once called the Ice Queen of Silicon Valley, was melting, and in that thaw, justice was finally taking root. 2 weeks passed. For the first time in years, laughter echoed through the Moro mansion. Maria had moved her husband into the guest quarters while he recovered. Little Lila now spent her afternoons reading books in the garden, helping the chef bake cookies, and sometimes following Evelyn around like a shadow. At first, Evelyn didn't know what to do with the noise, the giggles, the clatter of dishes, the scent of food that wasn't plated by professionals. But gradually, she found herself smiling at things she once ignored. The warmth of sunlight on marble floors, the sound of Lila humming in the hallway. One morning, Evelyn came downstairs to find the girl sketching something on her tablet. What are you drawing? Evelyn asked. You, Lila said shyly, but smiling. You don't smile much in pictures. Evelyn laughed softly. I suppose I forgot how. Lila grinned. Then I'll draw you one. The billionaire looked at the child's messy little doodle. Imperfect, bright, alive. It wasn't art for profit. It was art for love. And somehow, that was enough. That afternoon, Evelyn received another report, internal corruption. Several executives had been redirecting insurance funds for bonuses. One of them was Gabriel Tran. The laughter in her house didn't stop her from doing what had to be done. She called for an emergency meeting. Gentlemen, she said coldly, we built this company to change lives. Instead, we ruined them. That ends today. By the end of the hour, the guilty were gone. The house, and the company, finally began to breathe again. 1 month later, Evelyn Morrow stood on a stage in front of flashing cameras and a sea of journalists. Behind her, the new Morrowtech logo glowed softly, redesigned to include a single, shining star. The same shape as the charm Lila wore on her wrist. For years, Evelyn began, I thought innovation meant making life easier. But true innovation is making life fair. Her voice trembled slightly. We denied justice to people who trusted us, people like Antonio Navarro and his family. From today forward, every claim, every injury, every worker will matter. Because human lives are not lines on a spreadsheet. The crowd applauded. The story of the maid's daughter who changed a billionaire's heart spread across the internet within hours. Some called it a PR move. Others called it a miracle. But those who truly knew the story, those who lived inside the house, knew it was something far simpler. Was humanity rediscovered. And it had started with one hungry child and one cold plate of pasta. Months later, the Morrow mansion didn't feel like a mansion anymore. It felt like a home. Maria now worked as Evelyn's community advisor, overseeing programs that helped injured workers rebuild their lives. Antonio Navarro, healed and walking again, handled logistics for Morrowtech's charity division. And little Lila, the girl who once had to eat scraps, now came home every day to a kitchen full of laughter, light, and the smell of fresh bread. Evelyn often joined them after work, apron tied over her designer clothes, helping Lila stir soup while Maria teased her about seasoning. One night, as they all sat down for dinner, Lila reached into her pocket and pulled out her bracelet. The tiny star charm glittered under the kitchen light. Miss Evelyn, she said, I made one for you too. She handed over a small bracelet, silver, simple, handmade. Evelyn slipped it on, eyes glistening. Thank you, Lila. Now we both have lucky stars, the girl said, smiling. You don't look lonely anymore. Evelyn looked around, at Maria's laughter, Antonio's quiet gratitude, and Lila's boundless joy. She smiled, a real, human smile. That's because I'm not. Outside, the rain began again, soft, cleansing, alive. Inside, warmth filled every corner. For the first time in her life, Evelyn Morrow's world wasn't made of glass and code. It was made of people. And as Lila's laughter echoed through the halls, Evelyn finally whispered the truth she had waited her whole life to say. I finally built something human. Sometimes the smallest act, a child's hunger, a billionaire's choice, can remind the world that no machine, no empire, no amount of wealth can replace the power of compassion.